Hey everyone, it's Brandon from Billings on a Budget. We made this channel to give you travel and dining tips that you'll actually use that are useful, especially in the Nashville area, but then also where we travel around. And so this is the first of hopefully many videos or reviews or things like that. And we are going to be diving in today to our experience at the Gaylord Opryland Hotel in Nashville, Tennessee. We stayed there from Wednesday, July 16th to Thursday, July 17th, and had a really great time, but also learned a lot about this experience. We're going to talk about things that we did to make this experience cheaper, as well as whether we would recommend it to you. I guess I'll also mention, if you haven't heard of it, what the Gaylord Opryland Hotel is. It is one of the largest non-casino hotels in the United States. There are 3 ginormous atriums that are basically greenhouses. So there's tons of plant life, there's water features, there's restaurants, and a lot of the rooms look out among these garden areas. It is stunning, especially at Christmas time. If you are in the area, highly recommend walking around there. There's light shows. There's a boat tour that you can pay to go on. There's just so many crazy things at this hotel. And so really, I do think it is a world-class hotel. And I do think the prices reflect that. So I would just kind of be aware of that. So the reason that we wanted to stay at Gaylord Opryland Hotel was because we wanted to visit Soundwaves, which is their water park, indoor-outdoor water park. They're billing it as the first and only, I believe, luxury water park experience. And this is interesting and key to remember, so we'll come back to that. The biggest part of this review is what did I think of Soundwaves. Soundwaves is a huge indoor-outdoor water park, and they have several different things there I wanted to mention because I've had trouble finding. Their website is not great, and so it's hard to spell out exactly all that they have to offer there. First off, there is an adult infinity pool and bar. There's a kids kind of play activity pool with some like lily pads and then a rock climbing wall. There's a kids and toddlers play area. There are 2 different types of lazy rivers. There is a slower lazy river with kind of this cave grotto vibe that was really cool, and then a more chaotic, and there's a lot of water features. They're calling the up-tempo Rapids River. And all of these things have music puns because Nashville. They also have a double flow rider, so you can just sign a waiver and then choose to do boogie board or stand-up surfboard. I had done the boogie board one plenty of times at different locations, but this was my first time getting to try the surfboard, and you can see I did okay at it, but I had a blast. It was really fun, and I'm glad that I got to try that. There are also a handful of water slides that are attached to the indoor portion, and so they have 2 body slides that are pretty standard body slides. They have a single tube slide where it has kind of a toilet bowl feature at the very end, which is really fun. And then they had a double tube slide where it was just, again, a standard tube slide. What's interesting about the double tube slide is that you cannot go down it in a single tube. This is different than what I've seen at other theme parks and water parks. And so be aware of that if you're going by yourself, or if there's someone you maybe don't want to ride down with, that you won't be able to ride that slide. And that also comes into effect with, they also have a raft slide, a family style raft slide up at the top of the tower on the inside, and that requires a minimum of 4 people. And so my wife and I were there together, and so we kind of had to wait around and wait for people to see if they would split up their group, all of that. And so just be aware of that may impact whether you're going to be able to ride some of these slides because they have minimum amounts. The other really interesting thing that I wasn't really seeing anywhere online is there actually is another raft slide that was being built. And you can see from these pictures and videos, and you can especially see it from the exterior, they built the entrance for the slide and the exit for the slide, but there is no like tubing kind of in between, which I think is really interesting and strange. It seems like a budget cut maybe, but it's funny that the entrance and exit are still there. Obviously you cannot slide down it. So maybe that's a future expansion coming soon. The outdoor portion of the water park does have a giant wave pool with a video board where they're playing music videos. It looks like also in the summer they do movies here as well. And then there is a main slide tower with 4 kind of matte racer slides, so they're all identical and you kind of race together, and then 2 drop tower style slides where the floor drops out of the capsule. These were super fun and really intense. I'll also say that the lighter blue one, I don't remember the names of them, but the lighter blue slide has a very short runway at the very end and kind of thrashed us around a little bit and caused some pain there. So I would be aware of that, especially if you're sensitive to these types of really intense slides, that it might not be the best one around, but super fun. I think those drop slides are really intense and really awesome. There also is a kiddie play area outside and another adult pool, as well as a couple different eating and drinking establishments. We did eat lunch at the indoor restaurant called Decibels on Wednesday, and it was a pretty decent meal. I think the portion sizes were solid. I didn't get any pictures or videos of it, but it was pretty pricey and ended up coming out to a little over $50. And then also we did order a drink. It was a frozen pina colada. I also don't have any pictures or videos of that, but it showed as $15 on the menu, but it looked like there was some service charges happening on the back end, which I asked about. And so it was about $22 after everything. And that is just a really expensive drink. And so if you really love to drink on your vacations, I would just be aware that you're gonna have to spend some extra money there. Again, we were here for a little staycation, so we were ready to splurge, but we weren't doing any more than just that one drink. I think one of the standout features of this park is that even if it's crowded, I'm confident that they would have plenty of seating. I think that that's a key pressure point for a lot of water parks, is not enough seating. People camp out, they save chairs. But what's really cool is there's just so much seating in the area, and then especially outside, there's outdoor covered shaded seating over by the restaurant. It is just beautiful, and there's so many great places to sit and to hang out in this water park. I think some critiques or questions that I have that I thought were really interesting was that there actually aren't tubes for the lazy river. They used these kind of squishy floaty things. They almost look like pool noodles, and you can kind of bend them and arrange them in a way where you can sit down or float on top of it. But I thought that was an interesting choice, and if you don't like getting super wet in the lazy river, this probably is not for you. You're probably gonna be covered in water from shoulders down with the way that you have to float in this thing. I thought that was a fun, interesting kind of change from what I've experienced at water parks, but just be aware of that. I thought that was unique. They do give you a wristband where you kind of tap in to the park for admission, and I really wish that that was a little bit more expanded. It would be really cool if you could pay with it, or if you could do other experiences with it in the water park, similar to what I've heard the Tapu Tapu does at Universal's Volcano Bay. It was just annoying to have to walk back to my chair and get my wallet out and bring it to pay for any drinks or food. I think one of the biggest cons of this experience is that it's really hard to get into, and it's pretty expensive. There are only 2 ways that you can visit Soundwaves. The first option is stay the night at the Opryland Hotel. That is pretty much the way that most people are going to experience this. And this is a pretty expensive hotel, so I'll tell you how we pulled that off in a little bit. But the second option is doing a group party or group event. I believe that that's like a day pass situation, and you pay per head with a minimum number of people. We did not do that. I've not done that before, but I know a lot of church groups or friend groups will end up doing that. So for us, we booked one night at the Opryland Hotel, and one of the things that we did to get the price cheaper was to use the Davidson County discount. We live in Davidson County here in Nashville, Tennessee, and that is going to be the steepest discount that you can find. And so if you live in the area, definitely utilize that. There's a webpage for it. I just Googled it and it pulled up. But if you don't live in Davidson County, there's also a Tennessee resident discount that's a little bit less, but still a good discount. And so we paid, after taxes and fees and everything, about $300 for the night, and then also access to Soundwaves. When I was looking today also for another upcoming Wednesday to Thursday, the cost for a regular room was about $430, and that looks like it might be before taxes. And then also the room with a better view, which is the garden view room, was pushing closer to $530, $550. So really this was about $150 off, which I think is a really great deal, especially if you live in the area. I think one of the biggest cons of this experience is that it's really expensive and pretty hard to get into because they don't do day passes. And so I think that for us, going midweek using the Davidson County resident discount made it more worth it, where again, we spent about $300 on the room and water park admission total. But if the price was much more than that, or if it was much more crowded, I would have been a lot more hesitant about choosing to do this. A helpful comparison is it's probably going to cost about that much to go to Dollywood for the day and you don't get a place to stay. So I think that is kind of something to weigh if you're looking for something in Tennessee to do that is comparative in price and also a cool kind of water park or theme park experience. I'll also talk now about our room. We stayed in Delta room 1053, which is a standard exterior view room. I thought it was a pretty nice room, all things considered. Standard kind of hotel room. One thing that I thought was really nice was the bathroom. It had a sink that was split out from the bathroom, as well as a full stand-up shower. That was really nice. And I thought it was a great comfy bed. You know, it was quiet at night, but again, I don't think that there's anything about the room that would make me book this room. It was just a pretty regular hotel room for me personally. And one thing that the Gaylord Opryland tries to get you to do is to really stay there. Especially if you're visiting from out of town, I would be very aware that this is about a minimum 20 or 30-minute drive or Uber ride to downtown Nashville. So a lot of times people come there for conferences, but then you're kind of stuck in that area and to eat and drink and shop around there, which is fine. There's a big mall next door, but I personally don't find any of the restaurants or shops at the hotel very compelling. And again, it's not really the Nashville experience, in my opinion, as a local. I think that you're probably better off maybe doing a night or two there and experiencing the resort itself. And then if you want to move closer to the action downtown, moving hotels, and then also maybe you'll get to stay somewhere just a little bit cheaper. Now, what did I think of Soundwaves? I mean, this is surely the most beautiful water park I've ever been to. I grew up in the Midwest and there are so many indoor water parks there that are just giant rectangles with just a couple windows, but they really took the design into account here. The roof actually lets in UV light, and so it's sunny, it's warm in there. It is just gorgeous. There's plants everywhere. There's a lot of just kinetic energy happening because there's 3 different floors. And so it is just a really beautiful experience being at this water park. I think the outside is laid out really well, and even though you're kind of close to the highway, you don't notice it or feel it. It feels very secluded. It feels very premium. And I just really thought it was a great time, especially midweek, I would say, is the time to go. There was hardly anyone there. We were the only people in the adult pool pretty much the whole time. It was a private pool for us, basically. And there were hardly any waits for any slides or experiences. I would be careful if you're going to visit on a weekend or near a holiday, because that will just increase the crowds. I also will be aware that if you go during the winter months, you're not going to be able to experience the outdoor portion, which I think is a good thing to be aware of because you're probably going to be paying the same amount of money. So that's why we wanted to go in the summer, was to make the most of what we were spending on this experience. I think the indoor portion has a lot to offer, so if you're looking for a getaway from the cold, it would be a good choice. But again, just be aware of that if you're going not during the summer months. The outdoor portion also is subject to weather, so there was some thunder and lightning in the area when we showed up. They closed it for about an hour or two and then reopened later. So again, be aware of weather as you go to see if you're going to be able to experience the outside portion of the water park. And I think one of the biggest drawbacks to this experience too is if you're coming from out of town, is that it is not close to downtown Nashville. I would just really be aware of that and plan your trip accordingly. So another thing that we did to make this experience cheaper too is that parking at the Gaylord Opryland Hotel is almost $40 a day, which is crazy. So what we did to make that cheaper was we actually parked over by the Opry Mills Mall. You can actually see on the map that I'm going to put up where we parked, and it is a little bit of a hike. It's probably about a half-mile walk to the lobby, but I think that it is worth it ultimately at the end of the day to save that $40 on food, drink, whatever. I thought it was a perfect staycation. It was super fun to lay back, enjoy the sun, and while it's so hot here in Tennessee, and the water slides were really fun. It was just a really great experience. I would definitely go back again if the crowds were this slow and if the price remained the same, but I'm probably not going to spend much more on it. And again, some of the things that we did to save money was use the resident discount and also to park over by the mall instead of paying for parking at the property. If you have any questions about our stay, please leave them in the comments. And also, if you're interested in seeing more travel budget ideas and hacks, please follow and like this video. And I hope to see you soon.